Hi there, my name is Jabu Zwane. I'm a mindset development specialist, an entrepreneur, a speaker, facilitator, and an executive coach. I am so excited to be with you in gold. So, come on now, let's go get some gold together. I grew up in the Free State, which is more of a farming province in South Africa. Now, over there, I grew up typically, as many of the kids like myself, without my parents, my mother and my father, and under my grandfather. But the challenge with that specifically is the fact that I am Jabu Zwane, that's a Zulu surname and first name, but my mother is from the Basotho tribe, which is where actually I grew up, under Basotho. What that did is that it presented an issue where tribally it's not a very harmonious relationship. So you're kind of feeling a bit out a little bit. But on top of that as well, my father was not mentally well, and in our belief was that someone who is not mentally well is bewitched. So by association then, there was an issue then with me then being viewed as a son of somebody who's been bewitched. That kind of made me feel a bit ostracized. And a big part of that is that I think there's a particular story I want to share, which is about a teacher. I think I was in grade 3, which would make me 9 at the time. And at the time, we used to wash our own clothes. And for some reason, I decided this time I'm not going to wash that one shirt every day. And it was like on the 3rd or 4th day. But because we used to use Vaseline, which is like some kind of oil, lotion around the neck, made the whole thing look black. And the teacher wasn't very happy. And as I walked into the class, she then slapped me across the face. And then I bled over my shirt. So as a young kid at the time, I thought myself, my goodness, I'm alone. My mother's not there, my father's not there, and even the people like teachers who were supposed to look after me were not, they're not seeing me as worthy of anything. But what that did is that it helped me then to be a bit more resilient and to start thinking of ways to survive. And one of the things that I did there was to exchange jokes with other kids for lunch during lunchtime, and all the way up into high school. And I think it is very, very same resilient skills that I learned growing up poor, of course, as many of us did grow up poor at the time, but also having those additional elements of discrimination or ostracization or shame. And when you get up to the city, though, that resilient way of thinking and looking at different things, I think was very helpful to help me to navigate the difficult terrain of the city. One of my favorite teachers back in grade 5, standard 3 at the time, actually there was a play at school, and she decided at the time, I suppose it was a way of trying to help me build my confidence, for me to be in a play. And in that play, I was the only one that was supposed to actually have a line, and that line was John 3:16. And that's literally how then I was introduced to public speaking. But then all the way up into high school, I then became part of the debate team, which then saw me winning a few debate competitions. But along with that as well, I would always find myself somehow in some kind of a leadership role. Even in high school, I was the chairman of the SRC, which is the Student Representative Council. I was a vice head boy. I was the captain of the soccer team. I was the captain of athletics. And so I always, for some reason, often would find myself in the leadership role, having to represent people or having to talk on behalf of people. But then when I came up to Pretoria and I started going to church, and then I found myself then being invited to speak, even though I wasn't a pastor at the time. Eventually I became a pastor. Obviously then that meant I would be speaking every Sunday, pretty much every day of the week. But then at the point when I decided then to go into corporate sector, and then deciding, I suppose it was also driven by a need and a challenge that I was going through in my life, where I needed to generate an income. And then I decided to go for professional speaking. That was back in 2019, which then saw me then build this Mindset Development Institute, which I'm currently then using as a vehicle to service corporate South Africa in leadership and emotional intelligence, effective communication, high performance, and entrepreneurial mindsets. So that's how the whole thing started. As an industry, I must say first off that it is actually one of the fastest growing industries. It is estimated that it'll be within the next five years a $30 billion industry globally. So different places have different challenges. I speak both in South Africa and out of the country, USA. Some of my clients also are US-based clients. There's a different challenges there. The main difference being the fact that it is far more advanced in the markets like the United States or Europe or Australia, where the value of professional speakers, executive coaches, and executive trainers is seen as a necessity in a lot of corporate sector. In South Africa, it's picking up. It's taking up momentum. But the challenge with it is because it's not a regulated industry, then everybody thinks that I can just, if I'm struggling, I can just go and speaking. I suppose that's pretty much what I did as well. But what you find though is that because it is not like I was saying, a regulated industry, it is very difficult to know how to become a successful speaker unless you've got mentors like myself, unless you've playing yourself in a professional speaking association like I am a part of in Pretoria, the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, and I'm a president chapter of Pretoria. And so unless you can somehow find yourself in some kind of a developmental program through mentorship and doing the qualifications that you need if you want to go into training, getting accredited, if you want to go into coaching, getting accredited. But even as a speaker as well, learning how to craft the right keynote addresses, or maybe if you're an MC and learning how to run a proper programming, it becomes extremely difficult for you to make it work. Because at some point, even your natural talent, it needs to be in a structured environment where it can be properly developed, and then you can be able to leverage some of those unique skills, some of those unique natural skills. Yeah, I think pretty much the way that I grew up, when you are growing up under those intense, circumstances, poverty is on top of you, people not liking you, you are not being viewed as, handsome, for example, something that I used to hear all the time. Funny thing is that in South Africa, there's the issue of colorism. All right. Now with colorism, basically, if you look at my skin tone, if I go to an African country, I stand out because I look so much lighter than them. But in my family, I'm way, way dark. So I was viewed as a dark one in the family. So that made me then not as handsome, plus all of that, So then you grew up with so many elements of oppression, variables of complexity, struggle, quite a lot of it being leveled at you because of the way you look or where you come from, and things that you have no way that you couldn't do anything about. So I either had to capitulate under pressure, but for some reason, by God's grace, I refused to accept that. I thought to myself, okay, fine, I have no money, but what do I have? All right, I figured out that actually I have a better grasp of the English language than my average peers. And so I would then use that as to my advantage. And part of the things that I used to do growing up is that we used to write songs. We used to be very much into songs. People would have these song books and rapping and all of that. But because I could see quite a lot of the guys didn't understand English as well as I did, then I would sit in front of a television, not my own, my friend's family's television. There was this show called Studio Mix every Friday. So when these songs were coming out, we'd record them, dubbing them, And I'll sit and listen to them, write them down. And the next day, when everybody's talking about, did you hear this song? I would know the words. And then that would always give me the leverage then. And I also realized in terms of my dancing, I would come up with my own choreography, which is completely different from what everybody else would do. Same thing, watching television, looking at what's going on over there, get the choreography, and then adding my own twist. And then that made me popular also as a dancer. And I would always look for something that I could do that everybody else did not have. That would be different, that would make me stand out. And I suppose that was my own way of trying to secure some kind of significance in my own environment, as opposed to, always feeling sorry for myself. Because I got tired, I suppose, at some point. I must have gotten tired at some point of feeling like I'm not as good as everybody else. And that is pretty much, I think, what continues even today in my business. I continue to have that mindset, and I think that's partly contributed to the degree of success that I've had in a very short space of time of being in the speaking business. Even gold as a commodity, it has to go through a refining process. And that process, as we know, they always say that the goldsmith, puts the gold up to 1,000 degrees, and then up until he can see his own image reflection to the gold, then it's not ready yet. But with everything that is valuable in life, there is a process. And I'll say to you, true as it is that there are all these challenges that exist in the world, it is also true that there are many people like myself who've had similar type of challenges but learned from them. And I would say, number one, what are you learning from the things that you're going through? Number two, are you taking note of those lessons? It's one thing to learn, it's another thing to take note and write down and make sure that they are completely integrated into your mind. Number three, are you applying the things that you have learned? If you have not applied the things you have learned, they're as useless to you. Anything you've got in your hand, as long as you're not using it, or at least whatever purpose you're using it for will determine its value. If you're not using it, it's valueless. And then whatever you're using it for will determine its value. And the fourth thing is that once you practice, do you take time to look at what you got wrong and improve? There's the thing of applying, there's the thing of making mistakes, taking stock, and then improving. That is the process in the end that'll distinguish you from the rest of the people. The truth of the matter is this, and it's research proven over and over again, 99% of the people in the world do not do their best. That means that any human being in the world has got a 99% chance actually of success. Before you quit, before you sell the story that you've been selling to yourself and buy into it, have you really done your best? Have you applied your best in terms of your intellectual capacity? Have you given the time that you needed to give? Have you opened yourself up to other people? Have you gone to different environments, asked for questions, requested for help? And when help was given to you, what did you do with that help? Continue to learn. Continue to take stock of what you can improve on. That will be very, very helpful. That's what I would say to you. And unless you've done all of that, it's very difficult for me to believe that cheating, suicide, cutting corners is the way to go. I think first of all, it's important to define what success is. Success to me is the ability to achieve whatever you are aiming for. So if you're aiming to make a lot of money and you achieve that to you, of course, will be success. But the way that I understand success is that actually success is a consequence of your activities. So whatever it is that you're doing with the goal in mind to achieve that goal, when you perform those activities and then the outcome of those activities is a successful achievement of the goal, that could be a goal-driven success. Then there's a factor of success of life in general. What kind of life do you want to live? If that for you is full of money, full of mentions, and you derive some kind of gratification out of that and it's proof of your own worth as a person, perhaps that is to you a success. For me personally, success is the ability to provide for myself, provide for those that I love, and to provide a bit more for those out there who have less than I do. And whether that is money, whether that is knowledge, whether that is my own emotional availability, whether it's time, whatever it is that I have in abundance that I can share with others, that for me is success. And I find that if I were to limit that to cars, to mansions, I'm doing exactly what I'm saying. I'm limiting it. I don't know what that will look like for me, but I know that, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm curious to know if I gave it my best, what is that going to look like? I'm curious to know that. The one thing that I'm very happy about that's going well in the world is collaboration. The fact that, especially after COVID-19, we're now embracing the digital world, the Zooms, the Teams, the Google, of course, access on the phone. I mean, the world is within reach. In my industry, quite a lot of the work that I do, I don't even have to leave my office. I just sit here at home and I make as much money as I would have gotten on a plane and go somewhere else. But another part of that is that that has made everybody aware of each other's existence. I no longer have to explain to many different people in the world where South Africa is. A lot of people in the world know. People know where Ghana is now. Even here in South Africa before, people wouldn't know where West Africa was or that even exists. And so that globalization has made the world smaller. And what that basically means that it made it easier than to access. I always say to my mentees, I always say to people that I'm coaching, I always say even in corporate when I'm doing training, don't limit your existence only to your locality. Don't think because things are not working out in your local area, that is the end of you. Begin to entertain the possibility that there's a lot more out there. There are places out there in the world that will see you for who you are. That has worked for me. It was leaving my birthplace, getting into the city that people began to see my value, and I didn't have to contend with the issues of my past because I could connect with whoever I'm connecting with right now based on what can you give me, what can I give you, what can we exchange with one another. There's a verse in the Bible that Christ says that a prophet is without honor in his own town. It's not a spiritual verse. It's a verse about the natural laws. People get used to who you are. Once they get familiar with who you are, your value begins to diminish. They begin to take you for granted. Similarly, in the same way, you get familiar with your new shoes, you get familiar with your job, you get familiar with your friends. It's the human mind. Once we get used to whatever it is, there's no longer that intellectual challenge. And without the intellectual challenge, there isn't that excitement. There isn't that discovery of new things, rather, let me say. There isn't a discovery of new things. So there's nothing to anticipate, to look forward to. So it's like, it's just King Nee. It's just Jabu again. But when I go to a place where they don't know me, oh, your name is Jabu Zwane. Oh, wow, what can you do? And I can tell them what I do. And that energy then carries me. So get out of your place, get out of your own way of thinking. Begin to open yourself up to different ways of thinking. Begin to look at other options that are available out there. If you are South African, I always say, you have one of the most powerful passports on the continent. The world is open to you. You can go to Singapore without a visa and you can learn a few things there. You can get a 10-year visa in the United States where most of African citizens cannot even do that. I go in and out of USA like it's my second country. And if you don't know, learn how to know. If you don't know, learn how to know. And one of the ways that you learn how to know is be with people who know things that you don't know. Be in places that you didn't know. Learn things that you didn't know. Even if you are in a particular field, look at what other complementary subjects you can learn to ensure that your knowledge is above average, is diverse, it's richer, it covers multiple domains. When you speak up, how many angles can you hit one thing from? That makes you valuable. That's what I would say. That's what I love about what's going on right now in the world. Collaboration and the access that it gives me to diversity of knowledge, of people, of experiences, of geographical locations. I mean, this is a very common question, and the question about purpose is not a very easy question to answer. But I'll try to simplify it in this way. What is purpose? In the Greek, it's actually in the Bible. There's another, in Matthew chapter 6, the disciples asked Jesus Christ, how do we pray? And he says to them, this is how you pray. And you say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy will be done. And the word the will is actually purpose, which is a determined resolve. In other words, there are things to solve, to resolve in the world. There are problems to resolve in the world. Now, in the environment that you're in, when people are giving you feedback, what are they saying about you? What are they getting from you? Do they laugh a lot? Do they ask you questions because of your knowledge? Whenever there's any problem to be solved, are you the person that they come to ask to solve that problem? But whatever it is that you are, that is linked to your purpose, you're going to become extremely dependable in. That we will depend on you. There's going to be whoever it is around you will depend on you for that. Are you a healer with your words? People are going to depend on you for that. Are you an encourager with your words? People are going to depend on you for that. Can you solve complex problems? People are going to come for you for that. Are you somebody who's resourceful whenever if there's a problem and there are no resources? What are people coming to you for consistently over a long period of time. And then when you sit back and you ask yourself, if I were to make money out of this, actually, how much money would I make? If I were to make create some kind of value out of this, in fact, how much value could I be able to create? Because value isn't just also measured in money, it can also be measured in other commodities, such as, help from other people, resources, people availing themselves to you to help you to achieve what you want. There are many different ways, but to reduce purpose just to, okay, this is my ultimate purpose in life. I find that as you grow older, your purpose changes. Or rather, the way that you serve in your purpose changes. There was a time where I served in my purpose in the corporate sector. I was still the same person. I still help people. I still was very sensitive in terms of how people are thinking and how they struggle with the way they think. And whenever I trained or developed people or managed them or led them, I always lead them from how can I help them? What is making it difficult for them to receive the help? What is making it difficult for them to apply the help? What is making it difficult for them to even ask for that help, to maximize on that help? It's always been the way that I've thought about. And so I would say maybe as a human being, that's what bothers me the most. And that's one of the ways of seeing your purpose. What bothers you about the world? That if money wasn't an issue, you would do it every day and you would sleep very well at night. What is that? It bothers me when people cannot think through very simple things. And then their life is grievous, it's sorrowful. All of a sudden, everything's going haywire because of they're looking at this small problem like it's the most, it's the biggest thing that they've ever faced in their lives. And that took different forms. There was a point where it was in the corporate sector. In school, as a leader, I used to even go against the school corporate body. When I became a pastor, that's what I was, serving on the pulpit. I continue to do that even now. And in business, that continues to be the way that I serve in my purpose, which is always to help people, specifically in the area of struggling to think through simple things. I've always been doing that my whole life. It's always been like that from school, from when I became a pastor, and even in business. I think the value that I have, people have the right to access it. Whatever knowledge that I have, people have the right to access it. Now, the only reason why I charge for what I do is because it makes it easier for me to do it. And that's why I charge. And the biggest challenge also with not charging is that money is a way of determining the value of something. And if you just offering what you have for free, there is that unintended consequence of people viewing what you have as being worth nothing. I proved it when I was in some of my entrepreneurial ventures as a boutique owner, owning a fashion boutique, realizing that I'm selling these really high quality stuff. But when people walked into the store and they saw the price, there was a different expressions on their face. Some people would just immediately buy it, and then they would almost run out of to the store as if they stole the item. And some people would come in and look at it and then have that shock, and then they would walk out immediately. And some will come in and ask me questions about the quality. But then I realized that the way that I presented the store, the quality of clothes that I was selling, I was charging them too low. And there are people who didn't even walk into the store because they thought they couldn't afford it. So when they did and they saw the price, those are the ones that would buy the item and run out like they stole the item. Maybe they would think, maybe they made a mistake, and then they're going to realize they made a mistake and want me to bring the items back. And from that experience, I learned that if you articulate your value well, but you don't charge for it well, it's not something I came up with. It's just the way human beings are. They're going to see it as being less. All right. And so my business, big part of it, of course, is solving the issues within the corporate sector, because there's human beings in there, and corporate sector is able to afford my services. Therefore, I'm charging correctly because I understand the laws of transaction and of engagement in there. But on top of that, I do mentorship where people don't pay. But I'll tell you something though, King Nee. The mentorships people don't pay are the least attended. They are also they have the lowest rate of completion. They have the lowest level of engagement. They're probably the most frustrating projects that I get myself involved with. But when I charge people, there's a high level of commitment. There's a high level of success. There's a high level of engagement as well. And I think the reason why that is just because all of us has, one of the needs that we have, which we'll talk about, is the need to be significant, the need to be useful. And part of our usefulness is one of the ways that we determine our social value, our tribal value. What are you useful in? How well do you do it? And when you get rewarded for that, also there's that element of, okay, I'm now being acknowledged for that value. And so most people want that. And so when you give them things for free, although it may seem like the easiest solution, but it is not the most optimal solution.
Cool.
So I do have multiple projects that I'm running, some of them for free, some of them can be over a 6 months period. There's a mentorship group that I'm running right now. I did one for speakers and coaching, helping them to get into speaking, connecting them with the speakers within the industry. I am constantly also, with a friend of mine, we call ourselves the ecosystem of givers, which basically means that if I know there's something that you're very good at, King Nee, and I know a friend of mine that needs it, I don't waste time. You know, I immediately get on the phone. I try to call the person and say, listen, I just met King Nee right now. He's good at this. I know you guys can connect. And that's one of the ways for me of giving back and giving people access to my environment, because that's how I was allowed in. Somebody gave me access, and people also continue to give me access. And so for me, it's never a matter of, you know, I have to think of a specific project that I got to do. It's a matter of capacitating and scaling up on the many different projects. But the Mindset Development Institute is my legacy. The Mindset Development Institute, it basically is an institute that I'm currently running with a partner friend of mine, Alison Vaya. And there we give in solutions to corporates, you know, helping them to build critical thinking mindsets. I develop quite a lot of critical thinking models that I use to develop many different courses that I use to offer to different corporates to solve the problems of leadership, to achieve the goals of entrepreneurship, to enable people to become better communicators so that you don't lose your message as soon as you open your mouth. You actually become your own enemy. You know, some people can become like that. So anyway, I can talk about that all day, but that's just my main project that I feel is my gift to the world. Yeah, I've got a quick story actually. I've got a story I'm thinking about right now that inspires me. I'm going to paraphrase it in the way that I can remember it. But it's a story that I heard about this young man. This little kid was walking with his father, and then he's looking at this old man in front of the porch and with a dog right next to him. And as he observes the dog, he realizes that there's a nail sticking out from the wooden porch. But the dog has its foot in that nail and keeps on removing the foot and putting it back in there. But it's bleeding a little bit. And then the young man says to his father, Daddy, how come the old man doesn't remove the dog from the nail? And then the father said to him, you know what, son? The moment that nail begins to hurt a lot, that dog will move. At the moment, it's not painful enough. It still is comfortable. That's why the dog is still lying there. And the old man knows it. And that hit me so hard about how we can create comfort out of our pain. And because perhaps it has healed a little bit, the chaos and the trauma of the pain has subsided a little bit. And I suppose even sometimes the comfort that we get when people feel sorry for us, you know, like I see with my kids, I see with many, many different kids, where they will make themselves feel like, so, you know, look at me, I'm feeling, then you have to ask, what's going on, and then they'll tell you, they start crying, and then you wipe their face, and then eventually they tell you what's going on. I see that with a lot of adults, where our pain has become a way of soliciting pity from people. But there's another way also that pain does, that it can also be a way of escaping the reality and the harshness of life. Like, okay, fine, I got hurt, now I don't have to go out there because I got hurt. And then I use that and I'll lean on that and say, because I got hurt, I don't have to trust people anymore. I don't have to be nice anymore. I don't have to try anymore because I've been disappointed, because I've been let down. I can now come up with some kind of rule that says everybody's a jerk, men are dogs, women are gold diggers, black people are thieves, white people are racists, Africans are lazy. I mean, I can come up with many different simplified rules because I don't want to go through the necessary complex process of tackling issues. Books that I can recommend, I'll start locally. My favorite book locally right now is by Witness Mdaga. It's called It's More Than Just Money. And it's a book that helps people to get into property without money. He really goes into revealing industry secrets. And I know some people in the industry who are not happy with him for putting those secrets out there. And he's helping thousands, hundreds and thousands of people in this country to get into property as a way of, again, bridging the gap that apartheid brought into this country. And I really believe that property entrepreneurship is the way to go, and he does a good job with that book. It's More Than Just Money. I also love a book by Viktor Frankl, which is, Viktor Frankl was in the Auschwitz during World War. It was one of those Germans who were in those camps, and he came out of that, and he wrote a book about how can this thing that's escaped me now? Meaning. Oh, it'll come back to me just now. I cannot. This is my favorite book, and I talk about it all the time, but for some reason, I'm going blank right now. Yeah. But the other book is by Dr. Carol Dweck, which is a mindset, the psychology of success. Mindset, the psychology of success. Those are the three books that I would recommend at this particular moment. I'm very much into psychology, philosophy, linguistic, humanistic way of thinking, more than actually I am into business. So those are the two books that I really and then the other one I would say, which is more spiritual because also he's an amazing man of God, is by John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. 21 Irrefutable, it's one of those books that you listen to that book and then you don't put the book down. The book is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. So those are the four books. It's More Than Just Money by Witness Mdaga, number one. Number two, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Number three, Mindset, the Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol Dweck, W-E-C-K. And then number four, John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Yeah, I can talk about a lot of quotes, especially from the Bible. Let me start by saying that Proverbs is always my go-to book. There's a lot of wisdom in there, and I'm not going to quote anything specific from Proverbs. I'll just recommend that anybody who really wants to become a bit more wise, a bit more open-minded, and actually realize that this game of life, some people figured it out thousands of years ago. Read Proverbs in the Bible. Very, very, very super helpful. But one of the quotes that really speak to me is by Carl Jung, who says that it is difficult to think. It's very difficult to think. That's why most people prefer to judge. So thinking is difficult. And if you don't think, the easiest way to get out of thinking is to judge. Judgment oftentimes doesn't require a lot of intellectual output. Just requires a few laws. Just so you've broken that law. You are African. What are you doing? Let's say in South Africa. You're Ghanaian and you're succeeding in South Africa. Why? You shouldn't be here. I'm going to find something wrong with that. And I'll say, you're taking my job. Simple. Similarly, you're a woman. You're supposed to be in the kitchen. Why in the corporate sector succeeding, making me look bad? You shouldn't be here. You're emotional. Like, I don't even have to come up with a very reasonable explanation. I just have to find a way to support the law, whatever that law is. And another one also is from similar, which says that, also like it's very difficult to think. That's why most people don't do it. But if we're talking about quotes, one of my own life theme, which is the quote that I have in my mind, which is what I use in my marketing material, is thoughts, beliefs, words, actions, outcomes. 5 things. The way we think determines what we're going to believe. What we believe determines what we're going to say. What we say is going to also determine what we're going to do, and what we do is going to determine the outcomes. It's very simple. So if you're not happy with the outcomes in your life, what's going on? Start to go back. What were the actions? What was I saying? What did I believe? Where did it come from? I think to the younger generation, quite a lot of the way they are has a lot to do with what the older generations did. We have left them a world that doesn't always cater for their inquisitive mind, because I'm some ways just above the millennium era, but then talking about the Gen Zs and the younger generations, we have to encourage them we have to allow them the space to be more curious, to challenge the status quo, to ask questions about why are things being done the way that they're being done. I feel the fact that we continue to say the younger generations are this way and that way from a judgmental tone, again, we are being lazy intellectually, and we're not allowing the fresh minds to prompt us to think beyond what we know. And because then we tend to be, whenever they come into these places, we tend to be the ones that are in power. We tend to be the ones that are in control. We limit their movements. And that's why I think there's a lot of frustrated energy for me in the younger generation. But I will also go on and say to them, it is important for the younger generation to learn what the older generation did well. I also want to encourage the young people to look at what the older generation have achieved. And they have achieved with very little available to them. I want them to tap into that level of problem solving. Because when you got nothing and you create things out of nothing, you develop that problem solving skill. And to learn from that, to learn that structures are good, especially when you're starting out. You can't just want to implement your new ideas, completely destroying what exists without even understanding what worked about it. And you're just basically going after it out of frustration. I would say that it's important not to look at and to engage things only from the level of frustration. Because one of the things that we do as human beings is this: we look at things and we judge them based on how they impact us. So I'm being frustrated by a process I don't understand. Instead of saying, okay, what can I do to learn? I'll say, well, this thing doesn't work, but this is how I want to do it. And then I would rather go with my way rather than actually figuring out, why does this thing work? And what can I learn from it? How can I take what already works with what I'm thinking and then improve and come up with something better? Because here's a thought that I have in my mind, which is also one of the Jesus Christ statements in the Bible. Greater things than these will you do. And I'm married with another one where he says that, a master, like a student emulates the master. You think about it this way, that this is the reality. The younger generation should do better things better than us, because they've got the benefit of our knowledge and theirs. We're able to impart in them what we learned in 40 years in a very short space of time. And they take that and combine with their own lessons. The outcome of that should be a better world, not a worse world. So challenge the status quo, no problem. But also learn from what already works. Bring those two together and then bring in your ideas. And I think that you've got a far better chance of success in life as a young person. Okay, I have a wish for gold, but before I talk about my wish for gold, I want to say what excites me about gold. What excites me is that it brings the freshness that we need. There are too many reality shows out there that are concentrating on things that are set to entertain people, that are negative, that are curious, but they're not giving any value. And because of that, I wish that gold would get the support that it needs. I wish that for more inspirational people who have lived the life that people are hoping to live will be on the show, and they will share generously, and they will share without fear, they'll share without censoring, so that those people out there who need to hear those things can hear them, and they can maybe help somebody to encourage them to go and do their business. I wish for gold to get the financial support that it needs. I wish to get it for the team to be a lot bigger. I wish for the show to get a lot bigger and to get into for more people to access it, because this is crucial. It's crucial for our continent. It's crucial regionally. It's crucial for the world, especially for the world and for the Africans themselves to hear powerful African-bred stories. Well, my 4 major keys to success, the first one, of course, is God, no doubt about it. And more than just the believing God, but actually God as the supreme accountability institution. It's one thing for us to say we love God. It's one thing for us to say we believe. But how accountable are we to the institution of God? Our character, our motives, our commitment to our work, the excellence with which we do work. If you study the Bible, you see that, let's say Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel, they were excellentists, I call them. Thinking about Moses, thinking about quite a lot of these people, they were very good, they were excellent at what they did, hardworking, and they did it unto God, not unto man. And I believe that when you do that, it transforms the way you look at things, even your own motivations and your own level of gratification, especially in terms of hard, when things are hard. Number 2, I would say family. Vital, support of the family, and family doesn't have to necessarily be your blood family. It's just people that are there for you because of your value, because of you're very good at what you do, right? And they deciding to be there to support you, to be with you, to encourage you, to comfort you, to urge you on, especially when things are getting very hard. But more than that, family can give you that instant feedback to say, listen, you're doing something amazing in the world. And then the last 2 are more about the way you think. Your success is trapped in the way you think. It is in there. If you think that you need to succeed because you need to be important, the likelihood that you're going to mistreat people is very high. The likelihood that you're going to over-exaggerate your achievements is very high. But if you say, I want to succeed because I want to change the world, the likelihood that you're going to look at different ways of success, what do you need to do to get it done, which should include, who do I need to help? How can I be of service to people? Is likely going to be part of the way you do things. And then the last thing that I would say as well is, man, you need to account for yourself. You need to account for yourself. When the names of the people in the world are being called out, what is yours associated with? This has nothing to do with, bringing cure for cancer. But when people are talking about you, do they say you're reliable? Do they say that you're trustworthy? Do they say that you're hardworking? Do they say that you're kind? Do they say that you're wise? Or do they say that you're lazy? Do they say that you're moody? Do they say that you're judgmental? What is the feedback? Do they say that you're stubborn? Do they say that you don't listen? Or are you the type of person that says, when people are talking about you, are they saying, oh, do they feel safe around you to be themselves, to share their ideas? How do you account for your existence beyond your contribution as far as your intelligence is concerned, or even your career is concerned, you as a person, in whatever environment that you are in, how do you account for yourself, and what is the people's account of who you are? All right. Now, my 4 major keys for success are: number 1, God; number 2, family; number 3, mindsets; and number 4, self-accountability. If you go for those 4 principles, your success is gold. The ability to provide for myself, for my family, and for my community. That, for me, I would say, is my greatest aspiration and my greatest achievement. Whenever I know that I'm taken care of, my family is taken care of, and my community is taken care of, I don't have to have buckets of money. But if I'm able to contribute to ensure that, especially those who depend on me, and me as a source of protection, as a source of love, as a source of providing, safe space for them to learn, to grow, to be themselves. If I see that happening, that for me is success. That's success for me even when with my clients, when they get into that space where they can provide for themselves, be themselves, provide for those that they care about, create a space for them to be themselves, provide and contribute into the community. That for me, I think, is the great success, because that for me epitomizes what God has instructed me as a human being to do. And to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And the second one being to love your neighbor as yourself. So I really believe strongly in that. That for me is what Ubuntu is about. Unless you are, it's very difficult for me to be comfortable with me being. So that for me is what really makes me sad about the world today, is how us as human beings find it easy to dehumanize others. To look at somebody as a thing, as a label, based on my own limited understanding of what makes them that way. My own limited lenses of my culture, of my background, of my nationality, of my race, but I think most of the time of my own selfish desires. I think that's what really makes me very sad. I want to urge you to believe for others the way you believe for yourself. I believe that unless you can see yourself in others, it's very hard to desire for them what you desire for yourself. And one of the ways to do that is, for a second, imagine that they are just as concerned, as worried as you, and they also want the world to change the same way that you want to change. When you are in that mindset, you're open to collaboration, you're open to believing, you're open to encouragement instead of judgment, you're open to loving instead of indifference, you're open to helping instead of shunning and being cruel. So I urge you, imagine for a second that they, just like you, are as concerned and they want to do something different. So I think that we can make our world gold. My name is Jabu Zwane. I'm a mindset development specialist, an entrepreneur, a global speaker, a facilitator, and an executive coach. I want to encourage you to keep on going for gold with gold. My name is Jabu Zwane. I'm a mindset development specialist and a global speaker. Catch me on gold this week. My name is Jabu Zwane. I'm a mindset development specialist and a global speaker. Catch me on gold this week. Go for gold. My name is Jabu Zwane. Keep watching Gold with King Nee, my man. Well, my advice to entrepreneurs, whether you're starting up or whether you've been going on for some time, I think it's important to stay tuned. Be aware of what's going on in the environment. Sometimes we have these ideas that we have. We think that, our ideas is the most important idea. Have you tested the idea? Who have you spoken to? How do you know for sure that the idea is going to work? So test your ideas. I think it's important. The other thing I would say is that once you've started your business, especially, make sure that it's accessible. One of the challenges that I see with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they have a business, but it's not accessible. It's not online. They don't have any paperwork. Their signage is poor. Let's say somebody has got a store somewhere, and it's just written in a paint like, okay, I repair cars. And it's got to be accessible. It's got to be visible. And you also invest in your business. And I think especially when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, the temptation to just eat from the pocket into your mouth and not put anything back into your business is very high. And I understand because it's very hard sometimes. But I promise you, if you don't invest back into your business can never get to where it needs to be. And if you've been in the business for a very long time, when was the last time that you looked at those type of things? Your signage, your accessibility online, your service, for example. Part of accessibility is how well do you serve your people? Sometimes you've been so long, you become familiar with your clients, you're not quite as attentive to them, you don't respond as promptly as you should, you don't serve them as well as you would because they have been with you for quite a long time. When was the last time that you took stock of what you can do to improve your business? If you're not doing that, things are changing at a very rapid pace and you're going to fall behind. Every 2 years, information doubles. It means that even your child, by the time that they finish their university degrees, what they learned on the second year is no longer relevant. What more your business? What are some of those things that you keep doing right now that are no longer relevant and you don't even know that they're no longer relevant because you have not done anything to check whether or not your clients are happy with them, whether there's still demand for the products you've got. And before you know it, people stop coming to your business and then you shut doors. So stay tuned. Be aware of what's going on in your industry. All right, now for me, mindsets, I want to talk about that quickly. Mindsets are categories of thinking that lead to a specific outcome. Now, I've noted this in my years. It's never a question of ability. People are able. It's never a question of hard work. People are hardworking. It's never a question of intelligence. Many people are very intelligent. Sometimes it's not even a question of your resources because there are plenty of resources out there in the world. But it's always about the way we think. The categories of thinking that build the way you see things. How do you see your struggle? How do you label it? What meanings to attach to it? How do you see your success, King Nee? Once they show, let's say for example, where it gets to where it needs to be. How do you begin to see that? How do you begin to see yourself because of your success? How do you see yourself because of your lack of success? What do you label? Do you think that I'm bewitched? Do you think that I'm disadvantaged? Do you think that I'm unlucky? Do you think that there's no point in continuing on? What are those categories of thinking that build the way you think and lead to the outcomes? What are the outcomes again? Decisions you're making, your commitment, the disciplines you've got, the practices you've got, whether you're consistent or not. Consistency, for example, I believe that is the strongest link in the chain of success. If you're not consistent, what are the outcomes? And often things like consistency, procrastination, poor quality work have a lot to do with the way we think more than it does to do with our level of hard work, our competencies, our capabilities, our abilities, or even the resources. We know this a lot whenever you travel in Africa. Highly competent, able people just doing the least and then expecting the most. Yes, I want to say thank you to my family, to my wife especially, for all the support that she's given me over the years. I want to say thank you also to Dr. Nico de Klerk. Our journey started 25 years ago. Had it not been for you opening yourself up to me and allowing me into your space, I don't believe that I'd be here today. I want to thank also my spiritual, my pastor, Pastor Ronaldo Brown, Pastor Benny Harrison over there in the USA. But I also want to thank, especially recently, a very good friend of mine who's also become a business partner of mine, Alison Vaya, for all the support you've given, for believing in me. So much of the way that you've looked at me and treated me and celebrated the person that I am has contributed a lot to who I am and to the way that I see myself and to my success. So thank you.